Today we're going to take a look at Derwent Chromaflow pencils, and we're going to compare them to the Starjoy Gold Edition pencils. Now, I actually am a huge fan of Derwent pencils. I own many of their different varieties of pencils. Most of their pencil lines have excellent light-fast ratings on the majority of the colors. And Chromaflow, although you can't find the Colorfast ratings on the USA website, you can find them over on the UK website for Derwent. And surprisingly, for this, what is basically like their equivalent of Prismacolor, and a little bit lower end for them. Surprisingly, a large number of the pencils are highly light fast. They're number 8, which is the highest on the blue wool scale. And now the reason I wanted to compare them, though, is, all of that bubbling aside about how much I love Derwent, I was not terribly impressed with the Chromaflow pencils. And let me show you the first thing that I was not very impressed with. Now, I got both the 24 set and the 72, and quite honestly, I only got them because they were on at an extremely good price around Christmas. So the first thing that I wasn't really impressed with, and let me see if you can see this. Do you see that third pencil, the turquoise green? Do you see how it's laying in that box? It's because the pencil is crooked. The wood of the pencil is actually warped. So if you don't lay it in the box just so, it actually sticks up and you can see that it is warped. The second thing that I wasn't really impressed with is, take a close look at, I'll move this out of the way so maybe it'll focus on this, at how they are pre-sharpened. When I first looked at them, I was like, holy moly, that wood is really rough, and I was actually concerned that maybe they would not sharpen very well. As it turns out, though, they did sharpen very nicely, and I did use a electric sharpener, and if you look, it does do a much better job. So I'm not sure what they're using to sharpen them with when they pre-sharpen them, but it really chews the pencil up quite a bit. And let's take a quick look here at the larger set. And again, you can see very similar to where they're just all chewed up for whatever it was that they used to sharpen them with. So those two things, right off the bat, they didn't really impress me. I expected better from Derwent. But when I started working with them, that's when I became really even more disappointed. The working qualities were basically identical to almost all of the other lower end pencils that I have. So I decided to run a little bit of a test with them. So here you can see, here's the Derwent Chromaflow. Here's our Starjoy Gold Edition, and here is Color, the 240 color set. Now this is done on a paper that's got quite a bit of tooth and grain to it, as you can see. And if I bring these up, you can also see that all three pencils perform exactly the same. I would actually say that the Color performed better than the Derwent. They were softer and smoother. But I decided to do the full comparison with Starjoy and Derwent because those two were almost identical in performance. The only difference was there was a slightly, and I mean very slightly, more waxy feel to some of the colors in the Starjoy, but overall the performance of them was identical. And so the second test that I did is I started this coloring page, and this is on a page from a coloring book that has a little bit better quality paper. And you can see I have the Derwent Chromaflow on this side, Starjoy on this side. I tried to pick colors that were very similar to each other, and there really isn't hardly any difference whatsoever. I mean, I could not tell a difference in the quality of the coloring of those two brands of pencils. And let me see if I can bring this up. I'm not sure you'll be able to see it, but I also, right here and right up to this line, I used a blender pencil, and you can see that both of the brands of pencil actually blend very nicely. And so, I mean, I was really disappointed. I expected a lot more from Derwent, and particularly at their price point. The 72 set of Chromaflow, I honestly would have never purchased it at what its full price is, which I believe it was running around $149 or maybe it was $169 US as its full price. And then there was one of those one-day sales. It wasn't a flash sale, but it was just like one of those reduced, short time deal or whatever on Amazon. So I was able to get them for a lot less than that. I would have never bought them otherwise. But you can get the 120 set of the Starjoy at 1/3 the sale price of the Chromaflow. And so in my mind, if you've been looking at these Chromaflow and saying, oh man, should I save up my money for them? There would only be one reason to save your money for Chromaflow, and that is because they do have very legitimate light-fast ratings. And again, you'll only be able to find those over on the UK site. I'll actually put a link in the description so that you can get right to that page. Unfortunately, it's not one that you can actually download. It has a color swatch, and you hover the color swatch and it brings up the name and what the light fast rating is. But beyond that, I don't see any reason to spend all of the extra money on Chromaflow versus buying a set of Starjoy or the Color pencils. And like I said, the Color were actually better in their performance than the Chromaflow. And there was also a really weird thing that the Chromaflow did, and I probably should have saved some of the scrap papers that I had worked on. But what it was is the leads on these, and I don't think that this will be able to focus close enough for you to see it, but if you get in and you look really close, a lot of the leads do not have a solid color to them. They have like little specks of color through them. And let me see if I can find one that maybe you might be able to see it better with the contrast. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think that this camera is going to do it that well. But what would happen is, as I was coloring with them, and you're doing a nice smooth lay down, all of a sudden, glump, like this clump of color would just, come out onto the paper. I guess it pulled off of the lead. So again, that was somewhat disappointing as well. But yeah, just to summarize, if you've been lamenting over Derwent Chromaflow and trying to think if you wanted to save the money and get those instead of one of the lower end pencils, don't tear your hair out over it. Just go ahead and get a set of the Color or the Starjoy, the Castle Art, any of those. I've used almost every one of the brands that they have, and I'm going to tell you that Chromaflow does not impress me. It does not do any better than those brands. The only thing that I would say it is better than is if, you went and got some of the super, super cheap hard leaded pencils that, you can get in Walmart or whatnot. Then Chromaflow would be better than those. But if you want pencils that have legitimate light fast ratings, sure, go with Chromaflow. But if light fastness is not a big concern for you, you're just using them in coloring books or in a sketchbook, I wouldn't waste the money on them. Now that's just my opinion. Others may have differing thoughts on it, but yeah, that's basically my experience with Derwent Chromaflow, and I'm just not impressed.